Welcome back to the Sideline Live podcast. You can follow us over on Twitter and Instagram at the Sideline Live. We'd love to hear from you. On the first edition of our leadership series, I'm delighted to be joined by founder and owner of Bike Grow Ski and Performance Therapy Ireland, Stephen Weinman. In the first half of the episode, we learn about Stephen's career and his journey through fitness, while the second half we learn about the founding story of Bike Grow Ski. I hope you enjoy. Hi Stephen, thanks a million for joining me on the podcast.
How are you? Thanks for having me.
Before we get into everything, would you mind giving a 30-second kind of elevator pitch for the listeners who don't know who you are?
My name is Stephen Weinman. I'm the founder and owner of Performance Therapy Ireland, a functional fitness gym and physical therapy provider in Kinseely Business Park. And I'm the founder and owner of Bike Grow Ski, the fitness franchise.
Brilliant. So can we go back a little bit to leaving certain college? I've had a lot of kind of teenagers demographic. So in secondary school, what was the, like around the Leaving Cert, when they're talking to you about careers and CAO, what was the thinking around that time?
Yeah, I always kind of look back and not cringe or laugh, but I really feel like personally, I really feel that I wasn't ready for college after Leaving Cert. I kind of feel like I was probably still a little bit immature at that stage, and I think the way that not blaming anybody, God, but the way that kind of guidance counselling kind of worked, and you went and you spoke to someone in the school and they looked at the subjects that you were doing, and at the time I loved engineering, or metalwork was called at the time. I loved physics. I kind of liked maths and applied maths in that kind of area. Yeah. So for me, it was like, engineering was the obvious thing to be doing. Friends of mine were going into engineering as well. So I was like, look, this feels like right. It feels like it makes sense. Yeah. My dad went to Bolton Street and became a quantity surveyor from there. So, that was kind of on the list. And they said, yeah, that sounds about right. Let's apply for that. I think I applied for a course in DCU as my first choice and didn't get it. It was called mechatronics, I think, at the time, which is mechanical engineering and electronic engineering. And I didn't get the points in the end, so I got preliminary engineering in Bolton Street. And just by chance, I think 2 or 3 of my best mates at the time got the same course. So it just worked out. Yeah. And went in, and preliminary engineering was not a breeze and wasn't easy, but it was kind of like a good transitionary year from Leaving Cert subjects into before you got to first year college. Yeah. So, a lot of physics, maths, all that kind of stuff. And again, I did enjoy it, and I think I mainly enjoyed it because friends of mine were there, and you kind of just went from school and just kind of glided into college and didn't feel like you'd made that much of a change. You were just getting on the bus in the morning going into town, and it was great, bit different. I think for me there was just maybe a little bit too much freedom. I probably needed a bit more kind of structure at the time, but at the same time it was a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday sitting in 2-hour-long lectures about fluid mechanics and stuff, and I was like, I can't, I'm not the kind of person to sit there for 8 hours and just every day. And then you're hearing of your friends in UCD or DCU who are, I've got one lecture today, and then we're all going partying, and you're like, what? What course have I chosen? Because you're so young and you think college is just having the crack, and you
forget there's a bit of work there.
A lot of work. Scolisa in Malahide is where I went to school, and it was brilliant. Loved it. Had so many friends there. Still have tons of friends that we're all still in touch. And I wouldn't change a thing for it. I loved it. But I think in hindsight, if someone had sat me down and said, look, take a gap year, go get a part-time job, try a few different industries, that would have been brilliant. I think that would have benefited me more. Yeah. But, no one knew back then, and all I knew was, my dad went through Bolton Street, my friends were going there, it just made sense to tick the box, and off I went,
Yeah. When did the fitness start coming into things? Were you into it as a teenager?
Yeah, so I played for Allied United for football, never really got into the kind of GA and hurling side of things. Most of my friends did, but I played football instead. And played golf out in Beaverstown, and just enjoyed, you know, training. Like I was the guy downstairs in the like basement in your house with, you know, the York bench with the like sand filled weights and stuff, you know, and the like screwed together dumbbells and stuff. Like I loved all that, like downstairs, and you're reading the, like, you know, the encyclopedia of like bodybuilding book when you're like 16. I just loved all that kind of stuff. So I would have joined the Total Fitness in Coolock back in the day, when, like, as soon as I could, when I think they let you in when you were 16, and just being in there was great. Like, myself and a couple of friends joined, and like back then that was the kind of mecca to go and train on the north side. It was brilliant. It was so busy, and used to, like, you know, nick my mum's car when I was 17, drive up there, train for an hour or two, come home. It was great. So I loved all that, but never really considered fitness as a career, because I was like, oh, I'm going into engineering and this is how it's going to be, and, you know, that was that. But I constantly trained, and I think my dad said it as part of his speech at our wedding. He was like, he said that I always enjoyed training more than competing. And when I look back, I was like, he was probably actually right. I mean, like, I loved playing matches, and I loved, you know, when I like, through all the sports, through triathlon, when I competed in that, like, I loved going to the pool and putting in structured training sessions, and I loved going to the track and doing structured running sessions. And with soccer, I was the kid who was outside the house at 7 a.m. in the morning trying to do 100 solos in the morning before going to school, because I was just obsessed with just numbers and trying to beat previous numbers and like records and stuff of my own. And it was the same with golf, just tons of practice with putting and chipping and, you know, the usual stuff. So from a kind of practice point of view, I loved it. And then with Total Fitness and going to the gym, it was the same. It was just the whole thing of, you know, adding 2.5 kilos a week to your bench. You know, these simple things have just been incrementally getting better. And I think for me, that's always kind of been a big thing for me. It's knowing that that just with consistent practice of something, you're generally going to get better. So that made sense. When my dad kind of said that in his speech at the wedding, I was like, geez, he's actually pretty spot on. Like, I loved matches, and I loved races, and I loved competing in Olympic weightlifting up until a couple of years ago, and going to like weightlifting meets and competing at it. But for me, actually, it was the kind of weekly grind. It was the weekly going in and ticking a box that I'd gotten that little bit better. So regardless of how like a match went, or a race went, or a weightlifting meet went, or a golf tournament went, or something, I was like, yeah, you want to win or do well. But from a training point of view, I was always very much so, not self-centered or selfish, but always very much so like, I'm just going to control what I can control. And that's probably where I fell out of love with soccer as I got to maybe 19 or 20 or 21. I kind of got to the stage where I was like, I'm going to put in the work, and if other people don't, then am I going to get the rewards? Like, is the team going to win? So it wasn't blaming others for not being as focused or as driven as me, but I kind of just wanted to know that if I work hard and if I get incrementally better each week, that I'm going to see some sort of result for it. So that was kind of always the way I was kind of structured around kind of practice and training and sport and stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm. And how did that link into college? Did you finish your degree or did?
No, so I was 2.5 years into Bolton Street. So it would have been a 4-year engineering degree, but because I did preliminary engineering, it was 5.
Okay.
So I did preliminary engineering, got through that, did first year engineering, got through that, and then you chose and you specialised into either mechanical or civil or whatever. So I chose mechanical just because I thought that's just what I was going to do, and chatted to my dad about it, and he's like, yeah, go for that. Because I was always quite mechanically minded and into, you know, metalwork and building and Lego and Meccano, and just loved all that kind of side of things. And really, in hindsight, when I look back, I probably would have been better off doing a trade and being way more focused on an actual hands-on trade. But no, one day I think I just came home and literally just sat down at home and said, Dad, look, I'm really not enjoying this, and I'm actually, you know, truth be told, I'm not really attending lectures. I'm kind of going to Bodkins to the pub, and I'm going to the cinema, and I'm leaving early, and I'm going back to friends' houses, and they were like, I was probably more scared of what my mum and dad would think than about actually quitting college. And my mum and dad were great. They were like, look, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. So I left Bolton Street and got a part-time job. And I said, look, do you know what? I actually really enjoy fitness, and I've been training like crazy in Total Fitness, and myself and my friends were going all the time, and I loved it. And I said, look, maybe there is a career in this, maybe there is a job. And I'd say my dad more so was pretty apprehensive, because my dad would be a very kind of structured kind of guy, and went through all the kind of standard kind of protocol of going from school and college and, a job for life, that kind of thing, that most of our parents at the time would have been on that kind of mindset. Whereas nowadays it's a very different thing. Like, people want a job they enjoy rather than, the secure job for life, which is great. But you see more people, changing careers and and reskilling and stuff. So he was very supportive and said, look, let's find courses. And I went and spoke to career kind of counsellors in Bolton Street as well, for DIT, and they were very helpful, and they helped me look up different courses and stuff. And then I went into I found the NCF, the National Certificate in Exercise and Fitness, I think it is, or it is, I think it's still around. That was in DCU. Did their level 1 and level 2 and personal training courses, all while I was doing part-time work. Mm-hmm. And now, again, that was like, you had to exercise the fitness, and you had to do step aerobics and these things.
Oh, okay.
And there was no other course at the time like there is now, with all the like different S&C courses that are out there. Back then it was like, I would honestly say we only did a handful of hours in the gym setting, and the rest was like, now it was good. It was anatomy and physiology, which was great. But there definitely at the time wasn't enough hands-on gym instruction as to, literally like, how do you set up for a squat, like why, what is proper depth and why, and deadlift setup and bench setup, all these things that just wasn't part of the curriculum. It was just a different time again. That was 2001, 2002, so it was different. Whereas nowadays the courses are brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
So the NCF level 1 and 2, and I went and I applied for work straight away, and I got a job in a commercial gym out in Clonsilla, Blanchardstown, Clonsilla, in the Crunch Fitness out in Westmanstown. And that was great, but again, it was the commercial gym setting.
Okay.
I kind of always kind of sidestepped the like step aerobics and anaerobics class, because I was like, this doesn't sound like the fitness career to me that I want. And there was no personal training, there was no one-to-one coaching. It was just, you were there to basically walk the floor and just make sure things were safe.
Okay.
Which was fine.
Yeah.
But I think after maybe a year or two, I was like, look, I really want to be coaching. I want to be hands-on, and I want to be, seeing change with people and educating that bit more, because I'd educated myself up so much to a point that I was like, I want to coach people.
Yeah. Okay.
So I ended up working with a small personal training group that were in the Jackie Skelly's gyms at the time.
Okay, yeah.
In Swords, and I was doing some PTs there. But again, it was tough, because I was basically just walking the floor of a Jackie Skelly's gym, nearly trying to sell myself.
Yeah.
With a poster on a wall, and there was gym instructors in the gym who weren't associated with me, and I was just like, I'm trying to just drum up clients here. So that was very, very tough. So I went back to the commercial gym for 6 months to save some money, and then I said, look, I'm just going to go and do the Australia thing with my friends. It was kind of that time where they'd all finished their 4-year degrees. We were all around 23 maybe. And we said, let's just go to Australia, do a bit of travelling, Australia, Asia,
no COVID back then.
No COVID back then, like just jump on a plane, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, go to, Borneo, diving and all. Like, it was brilliant, the best 7 months ever. And when I was away, my sister was planning her wedding, and the whole plan was that I was going to fly home, attend the wedding, and then go back and meet the guys in New Zealand, and then do New Zealand, South America, and then come home the whole year. Yeah. But when I got home, I was like, no, I'm done. Okay. I was like, I need to find something. And my head had been spinning, going like, what am I going to do?
Even when you're away?
Yeah, when I was away, like, you're partying and you're having the best time ever and you're traveling. But it was in the back of my head, I was like, I need to be coming home to find something. And I'd say my mum and dad were kind of like, like they weren't saying to me, but they were like, what's the plan?
Yeah.
So I came home and looked up. Well, actually, I think while I was away, I looked it up. But the IPTAS, the Irish Physical Therapy Association, they were advertising for their next intake, and I think that was starting in September. And I think I got home in something like maybe it was something like June or July.
Okay.
And for the wedding, and then I applied, did the interview for IPTAS, and then I started that in September. So that was into physical therapy then. So that was the 3-year qualification then.
Okay.
And that was great. That was brilliant because I kind of went into that with the fitness background and understanding a passion for fitness. I was training every time, and I got a job in a really good personal training centre on Fitzwilliam Square, Baggot Street.
Okay.
Which at the time was booming because that was, Celtic Tiger stuff, and it was really busy, and we were doing, 14, 15 PTs like a day. It was bananas busy, and it was a really good team there at the time. And just by chance, so I was studying in the Physical Therapy Institute in the Milltown Institute in Ranelagh, and that was great, and that was weekends. And then you did kind of Tuesday or Thursday placements in the clinic where you observe treatments and all that kind of stuff. So there was a third year treating and a second year and a first year were observing, and it was really good structure. It was great. And then I basically was working in this one-to-one clinic in town, really busy. But at the time it was myself. It was John Belton from number 17 personal training, and he's involved in flow state. Mats, have you seen the flow state yoga stuff? So John's huge. He's great friend of mine. And then Michael Price from Perpetua Fitness was there. Dave McConkey from South Dublin Strength and Conditioning was there. A New Zealand guy called Andrew Spragon, a coach from New Zealand, and we were all just by chance. We all just ended up being a personal training team for these people. So, and we were all passionate into training. We all loved the whole Jim Jones CrossFit kind of approach. At the time it was very underground, very raw, and we all just started training really hard together. It was brilliant. So that time for kind of 5 years in town, that was a real kind of formative time, because we went off and kind of discovered the whole kind of CrossFit movement and the whole weightlifting movement at the time, which was really exploding and starting to really move in the States. And it was just kind of getting into Ireland. Like, there was only one CrossFit gym then at the time. And I always thought, God, I was like, I would love to, do this whole kind of underground kind of warehouse training and combine it with a physical therapy practice. So after five years, I was like, I'm just going to go and do that.
And set up your own business. What year was this? What time was it?
So I studied physical therapy probably 2005 to 2007, I think. And then I was in the personal training clinic in town. That would have finished up. I think I finished up 2010. In there, I was 2005 to 2010, I think, in town, and then I opened the gym. I remember it was the end of 2010, start of 2011, when it was a really heavy snow, because all our gear got delayed from the UK, we were literally dragging in mats in like heavy snow, me and my dad and my friends. It was great. And I was very lucky because one of my best mates, his dad had a warehouse in Concealy Business Park, and he said, look, the tenant's gone, and do you want to come and have a look at the place? I know you were looking around, and I was looking around only near here in like different kind of units and stuff. And I went up and I met him, and he showed me the building that we have now, and I was like, I'll take it. Absolutely. It was incredible. So it was great size and great location, like Malahide, Concealy, Portmarnock, Swords, kind of all around us. It was brilliant. And I grew up in Malahide, so it just made sense, so I just had loads of people who, there was nowhere like that to train, like, if somebody asked me where you're training, I was just like, well, it's just total fitness for me. Like, there was nowhere else to really go at the time. So that was, that would have been 2000 and end of 10, start of 11 that PTI opened.
And what's it like going from a secure job in town, even at that time, like that sort of recession time, economy wasn't doing great? You did mention the Celtic Tiger earlier. Setting up your own business, how big of a jump was that for you?
Yeah, it was big. Looking back, it was.
Did you know what
plain.
it would, did you know how much work it would
No,
be?
absolutely not. I like and like looking back, I laugh because it was just pure pig-headedness. I was like, if I have to sleep in this place on the floor, I'll like it's fine. I'll do that. Like I was living with a friend of mine in Swords, just beside the pavilions in a house at the time, and he moved to England then because of the whole kind of downturn, and he
Yeah.
lost his job and he moved to England, and I ended up we rented out that house, and I rented off another friend of mine moved abroad, and he had an apartment right beside Concealy Business Park, and he's like, do you want to just jump in there? And it was perfect. So I was literally just strolling around the corner
Yeah.
at like 5:30 in the morning, opening the gym, going in, getting the place set up, doing some one-to-ones, doing some physical therapy, coaching groups all day, and then closing up at 9-10 o'clock at night, and then strolling home and getting to bed and getting up and just doing it again. And like my dad was great. He like held me accountable in fairness, because I'd no other real business mentor. So
Okay.
my dad, from a very structured point of view, and just being being very practical, being a realist, always saying take one step at a time.
Yeah.
Do all the basics right stuff. So he just held me accountable to like monthly meetings, and we put different structures in place. Now I was lucky because I knew the guys out in CrossFit Ireland at the time, and I'd seen how they'd launched and they'd kind of operated, and I said, look, okay. And I knew Michael Price, before he was Perpetua, he was CrossFit Dublin.
Okay, so you had a couple of links there.
Yeah, so I was kind of going chatting to the lads, going like, what did you do to kind of start things off? And the one thing that I didn't really want to do was go full bore CrossFit, and not anything against CrossFit. I was a CrossFit affiliate for a few years, because at the time, it just raised people's curiosity to go, God, what is this? And I'll go have a look. But I wanted to have my own brand, and that's where Performance Therapy Ireland came about. But also previously I was in the States with John Belton, and we went over for a month. I think it was Christmas. Yeah, I think it was 2009 to 2010. We went to California.
Okay.
And we literally visited 2 gyms a day every day for 4 weeks.
Wow.
And we trained and we trained and we trained. We literally just rented a Jeep, and we flew into LA and went down to the Balboa Peninsula and met John Welborn, who was CrossFit football at the time. He's power athlete now. He was like a linebacker for the Philadelphia Eagles and stuff, and incredible. Like, this guy was just brilliant and very welcoming, and brought us out for food. And we'd like just arrived, and we were on this big kind of CrossFit buzz, and we'd booked different courses to attend while we were over there. And he was the first guy that we met, and that was the plan, was to go and just talk to a ton of people and just learn and say, like, what did you do? What do you think we should do? Like, I'm going to open a gym in Ireland, and blah blah blah. And I got some incredible insights over there, and looking back, that was probably one of the most valuable months of my whole career, because I was just totally vulnerable and just open, and just asked everybody I met, and I said, listen, this is what I'm thinking of doing, what do you think? And John Welborn, who he had CrossFit football, and he ran the CrossFit football courses and stuff. Now he's since kind of disaffiliated, like quite a few, but the first thing he said to me was, he was like, look, make sure you have your own brand name, because he's like, things change, and you never know what'll happen. And James Fitzgerald from OPEX, OPT, he said the same to me as well. Rob Wolf said the same to me as well from the Paleo Solution seminars. Like quite a few of them said, look, do your own thing at the same time as well. And that was Greg Everett from Catalyst Athletics. He said the same as well. So, everybody that was saying this to me had their own brand. Like, James Fitzgerald was Optimum Performance Training. He was OPT. Now he's OPEX. Greg Everett, a great weightlifting coach and kind of mentor of mine as well, with Coach Bergener. They were like, Catalyst Athletics, Mike's Gym, Rob Wolf was Paleo Solution, John Welborn was CrossFit Balboa, but he was power athlete. Yeah. So I was like, I'm just going to do my own brand, and I'll have CrossFit North Dublin as the kind of sub name. And I got a little bit of flack from CrossFit headquarters for having my own name. And they're like, why do you want your own name? And I said, oh, just have my own brand as well. But it was nothing against them, but I just loved the idea of the coaches that I met over there and that I'd watched online and that I loved their gyms and their brands. They did have their own brand, and they were able to say, regardless of CrossFit at the time, I've got my own brand and my own kind of philosophy and theory as well, which I loved. So I came back and then set up the gym. So it was Performance Therapy Ireland, and then the sub name was CrossFit North Dublin. But the main thing about CrossFit that just appealed to me so much was just, one, it was hands-on coaching, and it was for me, because I was a qualified physical therapist, everything needed to be right. Like, it couldn't be a half-assed approach to movement, and you couldn't say to people, just, pick up 100 kilos and do 10 touch and go deadlifts into burpees. Like, for me, it was like, that just didn't make sense to me. It needed to be, that person needs to deadlift and that person doesn't, and here's the reason why. This person needs, to be doing single leg RDLs, and this person can deadlift but from blocks, and this person is strong and experienced and has enough of a training age and experience to pull a 1 rep max deadlift. But this guy over here who wants to, he doesn't need to. He wants it. He doesn't need to. And being able to actually have that rationale with someone and go, by the way, you're a tennis player. You don't need to pull a 1 rep max deadlift. And people go, yeah, actually, you're right. I didn't really think about it like that. So I loved that approach, and I love being able to have 100 members and know every single one of them and know what every single one of them needed versus the rest of the people in the room. So we kind of, I kind of set up that whole kind of idea of individualized training within the group setting, and that's how PTI has always been, and it always will be. Even more so now, it's we run 5 programs at the same time in the same setting. So we've got 15 bays and the whole, the distancing and so on. But now, like, we've TV screens up and we've got different programs that scroll across the screen based upon, so if you're in the room and you're in a fitness program, someone across from you could be in a performance program, someone across from them could be in a competition program, someone across from them could be doing Olympic weightlifting programming, and someone across from them could be doing a strength and conditioning program. And the coach is just making sure that everyone's just following the program. And it was one of these things that I never saw a problem with. And lots of people always said to me who own gyms or who own kind of functional fitness gyms or cross gyms, they always said, that sounds like a lot of work. And I'm like, yeah, but you're a coach. That's what you're meant to do. It shouldn't be like, how do I get through this hour and make sure everybody crawls out of the place, and it's the easy way to do it. So I'll program, 100 reps of X and off you go. Like, that's not programming, and it's not coaching, like, things have evolved massively in the industry, and everybody's so well informed now because of social media has a lot to social media's helped a lot. It's also hindered a lot because it's given people crazy misconceptions of fitness and of health as well. But in terms of actually getting exposure to everything and being able to look at things and say, I fancy that kind of training, I don't like this, I like that. Whereas back then, like myself and John Belton and Michael Price and Dave McConkie and all the guys, we were just on the CrossFit website, like clicking refresh every day, seeing what was coming up, or on the Jim Jones website, or all these like different websites. There, like, Instagram wasn't a thing, and Facebook was only kind of getting going, and I think like Bebo had just like finished up or something crazy. That just shows how old I am. But yeah, I mean, it's for me, it was coaching was about doing the fundamentals right and explaining to people, you don't need to Olympic weightlift. Like, you have this shoulder issue, you have this upper back is tight, you have, you can't squat deep, you're better off box squatting. And being able to, like, physical therapy was the best thing I did because it set me up to be able to explain in layman's terms to everybody coming in who wanted to do, I want to squat double body weight, I want to, pull a 1 rep max, and to be able to explain to them going, this is why you shouldn't, and this is why you don't need to, and this is the sport you play, and this is what you should do. And they're like, oh, this makes so much sense now. So that for me was a really powerful tool. I loved that side of it, and it gave me, I think, just a good kind of upper hand in the industry at the time because CrossFit was fantastic, but to be able to give my version of of CrossFit, which was individualized kind of doses, I found that was a lot better. Did I spend the majority of my life programming? Yes, I did. I wrote millions of different programs that are on my laptop and on a hard drive, and I could probably publish a book on them, on like different people and the journeys that they went through. But you know, you learn a lot about people in the time as well, and even funny things like saying the fitness program, the performance program, and the competition program, just a name. They're just names. Everybody does squat, hinge, push, pull, you know, core work. They do, you know, single leg, all this stuff in every program. That's, you know, that's balanced training. But because of the name, people would be like, "Oh no, I don't do fitness. That's like the beginner program, isn't it?" And you're like, "No. That's like, you know, the least complex program. That's actually your best bang for your buck because of, you know, tempos and reps and sets and rest periods." But people because of the name, they were like, "I want to be in competition." So I was like, that was the one thing that I'm like, have I actually shot myself in the foot just by naming the programs and making one sound cooler than the next? So like maybe they should have been just called program
1, 2,
A,
3,
B,
4.
C, but then they'd be like, "Oh, is C better than A?" So, it was a funny thing at the time, but it really does give you a fantastic understanding of people and every body type coming in, like long femurs, short femurs. People who, like, after tons of mobility still can't squat below parallel, and you start asking questions about like femoral heads and ankle mobility. And so I did the CrossFit weightlifting course, I did the Jeff Martone kettlebell course, I did OPT's courses at the time in program design, and assessment and nutrition.
You were constantly evolving.
Constantly, and it wasn't, I think it was like, you know, that whole thing of having all these certs up on your wall was great to show you had like 20 different courses, and like people coming in going, "Geez, what course haven't you done?"
Man's a genius.
Yeah, exactly, and it was great. But at the same time, a lot of the courses I kind of flicked aside and went, "Do you know what, that wasn't actually that valuable." There was one or two things that were okay, but some courses, especially the OPT courses at the time, which are now OPEX courses. James Fitzgerald's a genius, like so good. And then I was coached online by Steve Pan for weightlifting from Catalyst Athletics for a while. And
How did you find that, actually being a coach and having a coach? What did you think of that?
Yeah, and it was at the time like no one was really doing online coaching or online programming or training, whereas now it's massive, obviously. It was great, like, because I met Steve in Catalyst Athletics in 2000, and me and John went over in 2010, I think, and met him and Greg wasn't taking on clients, and Greg was very expensive online because he was a big coaching team there. So Steve took me on, and he just sent me weekly programming, and I had like a camcorder that I was like videoing on a tripod, and then going home in the evenings editing and then uploading to YouTube, and then sending him links for him to review to come back. It was this arduous process. Now he was coming back weekly to me, but the programming was great, and because I was in the kind of novice to intermediate in terms of weightlifting experience at the time, and I look back on the like videos and I look like a bag of Lego moving compared to, you know, how much of a little bit more I got better. He was great, and then I ended up going from that and being more into the kind of CrossFit side of things, but not competing or anything, but just enjoying the full kind of scope of training. I met Max El Haj, who has Training Think Tank. So if you look him up online, his Training Think Tank, Max is a genius. And again, he would have been working for James Fitzgerald in OPEX at the time, and I inquired and I was assigned Max, and I probably was 2 or 3 years under Max, and literally doing like Skype calls with him, and the idea was to find my athletic potential at the time, not to compete or anything, but just to see how. And it was everything. It was weightlifting, it was CrossFit side of stuff, it was endurance, and very high volume, very stressful, very enjoyable, loved it. But I would literally train, you know, 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, and my off days, and I was training in between classes or after classes or
Okay.
after class on a Saturday. And my wife now, my girlfriend at the time, Kathy, was very understanding.
Yeah.
But, you know, she knew that this was just me, like, working on my craft. This was just me trying to be as good as I could to try and understand. Yeah, and it was my time as well, but it was trying to understand, you know, the progression of all of this training,
Okay.
and you know how far I could push myself, and see how, you know, decent could I get at weightlifting as well as CrossFit as well as endurance stuff, and yeah, you get to a point where you're like, look, I'm not broken, but I'm burnt out, and you're trying to work and run a business, yeah, and then, you know, we end up we got engaged and got married and so on. So that kind of had to be kind of pushed to the side. And I said, look, you know, I'm just gonna weightlift and just kind of enjoy weightlifting again. And
Okay.
go back into weightlifting and stuff. But in terms of kind of online mentors, yeah, Max El-Haj would have been a big one, a big one. And then Coach Bergner was great as well, great for advice. We stayed with him a couple of times. Me and John stayed with him in San Diego for a week, and then myself and Kathy stayed when we went to San Francisco and got engaged over there. We stayed with the Bergners as well, and incredible people. Like Mike Bergner's absolute legend, hero of man. So yeah, great mentor as well. So I was very, very lucky that I kind of had close ties with James Fitzgerald, Max El-Haj, Coach Bergner. I met Mark Ripto, did his seminar as well. You know, Rob Wolf, Kelly Starrett, and then, you know, met and trained with guys over the years like Miko Salo and Jason Kalipa, Pat Barber. Lot of just big kind of CrossFit and weightlifting kind of heroes over there. So I was just really, really lucky. You know, you meet people like Sam Briggs and you meet people like Annie Thorstadter, and you see all these people train, and they're just different levels.
Yeah.
You know, they're
Animals.
just phenomenal athletes and really good people too. So, you know, really lucky in that kind of sense. But yeah, the whole kind of training side of things was great, and the education side of things was great. But the most important thing that I kind of took from it all was the community of CrossFit is
Very
brilliant.
strong.
It's very strong. It's very protective. It's very proud, and everyone is so passionate about it. And I loved that side of things, and I loved the amount of interaction with the amount of people and the amount of learning you can get from that as a coach, and then eventually as a move towards business, you kind of get that kind of learning as well, because you put so much time into the trenches coaching, and you realize that the business hasn't actually done that much, and you start to kind of look back and go, geez, I've done a lot of years of coaching and I haven't actually done enough on the business. So that's where, you know, the penny drops, and then, you know, you have a baby and you're looking for a mortgage, and then the pennies start really dropping, and you're like, okay, I need to refigure out how I'm managing my time here.
Okay.
And as much as I love training, I had to give myself a little slap on the wrist and go, you need to start looking at the bigger picture here. Like, you know, training's great, and it's great for your head, and it's great for, you know, as my hobby. But really what it was is that my job as a coach, I was spending loads of time coaching and training, and I wasn't spending enough time in the business. It was literally like 80% here and only 20% there on the business, and that had to be flipped. Like, it had to be straight flipped, and that was a hard decision at the time. But when I look back, I'm like, it was so necessary for everything, for family, for a mortgage, for, you know, I'm 40 now. You know, it's like you can't
do it forever.
You can't push the envelope hard the whole time. There has to be a point where you go, I need to just enjoy training, stay healthy, stay fit, but I've got to work on business, because you know, like, you know,
that's the bread and butter, like, obviously.
Exactly, you know. And
how did you balance your time in terms of that? I presume then at that point you started looking into hiring people, or did you have a couple of people at the time?
So I did the first couple of years on my own, and then in the personal training place in town, there was a guy working with me called Daglon Crow, who's actually a great hurler with Casablanca and with Monaghan. And he went off to Australia. I remember travelling with his girlfriend, who's his wife now, and I just messaged him when I saw him on Facebook saying it was time to come home from Australia and blah blah. And I messaged him and said, look, when you're home, give me a shout. I need a coach. And I knew he was good. I knew he, you know, had been in the personal training clinic with us, so he knew us already. He knew the way that I kind of operated and I coached. And he was a great guy, super trustworthy, great, just a a great fella. So he contacted me and said, yeah, I'll come back and, I'll give you a shout. And he got involved a few hours here and there. And now he's the gym manager for me for the last,
brilliant.
like 8 years or something. He's gym manager. And he qualified as a physical therapist then. So upstairs, I put in a physical therapy room. So he has his practice there as well. So he's the lead physical therapist in PTI now.
Okay.
I kind of hung up the physical therapy boots a long time ago. But, I kind of view physical therapy for me was more of a diagnostic kind of coaching tool. For Daglon, it's definitely a hands-on treatment.
Okay.
And from a coaching point of view, he still coaches classes for us in groups and one-to-ones. But from Thrive Physiotherapy will be his business there, and he'd be busy with that. So that was the kind of goal, that he would get qualified as that, be the lead physical therapist. I could completely stop doing that. And he could kind of run that kind of side of things as well,
Okay. And where did the idea for Bike Roski come in? Did that come from kind of your CrossFit background?
Not really. Well, it kind of came about as a semi kind of accident, would you believe, because I was really lucky at the time. I was contacted by a guy who said he was looking for personal training, and it'd be 2 evenings a week, late at night. And the only slots that I had was 8:30, 9:30. And I was like, yeah, look, grand, I'll take him on. Didn't know anything at all, bar that he was just a nice fella. And PTI at the time was going through this real funny phase of loads, well, not loads, but quite a few people coming to me saying, listen, can I pause my membership or can I cancel? And the reasons that were coming back to me were what I was kind of going through that phase of my life as well, which was having kids, trying to get a mortgage, getting married, all these kind of things that you needed to like cut down on your spending, your bills, direct debits, all these things. So people were kind of saying to me, would you mind if I just kind of popped into one class a week, or just gave you, a few quid for one class a month? And I was like, listen, it's a membership model. We don't do that. I can't do that. It's, and I was still of the mind frame that, people in training, especially with, mechanical training like squatting and pushing and pulling and so on, needed to be consistent. It needed to be programmed. It couldn't be random. I was very much to that, and we still are. It's very much to that, keeping people kind of purpose driven over 8-week blocks, and then assess those blocks, and then reprogram, and then go again, and give people this non-stop cycle with breaks and with deloads and stuff. So I kind of had to turn around to myself one day and be like, I'm turning around, or I'm turning away a lot of people who are asking just to come in and use the equipment for a sweat. And, from an insurance point of view, I was like, I can't let you into the building on your own. There has to be a coach there. There's all these kind of barriers. And I was like, why am I turning people away? There has to be a solution where people can pop in a pay-as-you-go style model. And I had the space in the building upstairs. I'd installed a mezzanine floor as well. Okay. So I was like, there has to be some other way. And just by chance, the guy that I'd met and I was personal training at night, we were just chatting away, and he said, look, PTI is great and what you do is great, and have you any other plans? Are you going to open a second one? And I was like, God, no. I was like, this is so much work.
Enough.
Yeah, and I was like, and I've got one baby and another one on the way. And he was like, okay, wow. And he's like, if you're ever thinking of anything, let me know. And I was like, just kind of shrugged it off, and I was like, okay. And we kind of kept talking, and I said, well, I actually do have this kind of other idea, and it's a studio based kind of business, and I might do it downstairs in this area here. And he was like, why would you do it downstairs? Do it upstairs in that space. And he goes, come upstairs and I'll show you. And it was actually our old changing rooms and showers and physical therapy area. And he's like, if you knock this whole place down, it's XYZ square meters. And I was like, never actually thought about that. And it was the fresh pair of eyes of somebody's look at the same space going, can you not see? And I was like, no, because I'm here for the last like 6-7 years, and I just see everything as the same thing. So he said, look, you could do this and this. And he said, look, by the way, if you're interested and if you need someone to help you do it as an investment point of view, he's like, just give me a shout. And I didn't realize who he was, and didn't know that he was quite a very successful businessman in his own right, very successful and a great guy. And I said, oh, so we kind of got talking, and he said, look, you know, put some numbers together and, you know, let me know what you're thinking, what's it going to be called, what's it going to look like. And he said, listen, myself and my wife, they have their business, and it's phenomenally successful. And they said, look, we can help guide you if you want and start this up. So I said, okay. And we did it. And we had a few different kind of crazy names for.
Yeah, how did you come up with the name? Because I don't know how. I'd love to know, like, kind of the backstory to a lot of the businesses.
So Stu, who is my head of operations for Bike Ski, he always slags me about this. We had all these kind of different names and different ideas, and I told him, I said, look, we're going to do this studio thing. And he was downstairs training, and I was on the mezzanine leaning over talking to him, and he said, have you thought of any kind of name for this thing? And at the time he was like, would you go away with this idea? You know, he was a coach in like PTI and loved his training, and you know, he was like, would you stop? And I said, I'm thinking of this thing, and it's going to be called Strobe. And he just looked, he looked at me and just kind of closed his eyes and shook his head, and he walked off. And I was like, right, I'll have a rethink. So and like, my wife will kill me if I don't say this, but it was Kathy who came up with
full
the name.
credit to her.
Full credit. We were there. I remember we were sitting in the sitting room with our first daughter. I think she was asleep or whatever, and I had this list of names like on my phone here. I had this list of names. I was looking through them all, and I think Kathy was like, why not just, you know, the whole Ron Seal thing, like just say exactly like what the name on the tin, exactly what it says. She's like, what about, you know, bike, row, ski? And I was like, yeah, that actually makes sense. And I'm one of these kind of OCD-ish kind of people that, you know, bike, row, ski is alphabetical, and bike, row, ski rhymes with .ie, and you know, then the like coin the like term of like bike, row, ski master all three, that came about as well. So Kathy, full credit. You picked it, yes. So she was like, yeah. So I went back to my business partner at the time, and I said, look, this is what we're going to call it. And he was like, yeah, that sounds class. Let's come up with a logo. So we got the logo done. And then we basically said, look, you know, this is what we're going to do. We're gonna do this kind of format, and we tried a few different kind of formats at the time, in the kind of soft launch stuff, and trialing different sessions with all the like coaches and some friends. And then you know, everything from, you know, the heart rate training stuff to now what we have, our new kind of data collection stuff, our IQ system in the studio. All that was all just trialing, and then when it launched steady. I think that was August 18, and August, September, October, all were kind of like, yeah, this is doing something. And then November, December 18 into January 19, blew up, and we haven't looked back, thankfully, you know.
For those that don't know what exactly it is, when you go into a bike row ski class, what do you do? Can you take us through it a little bit? Yeah,
so it is exactly what it says on the tin, like you will bike, you will row, and you will ski. So it is a heated and highly ventilated. So that we were very, very lucky that was part of the model at the start. So we have in a high volume air exchange system in every studio, which we're blessed that was part of the plan. And is a heated atmosphere with the high volume air exchange system, and you go in, it's coach led. So a coach brings everybody in. In some studios we have 9 ergs, like 3 and 3. Some studios 12, some studios 15, some studios up to 21. And we do 12-minute mixed rate variable blocks. And we've different name sessions, like pyramid sessions, we've got fartlek sessions, we've got speed play sessions, we've got up and down sessions, we've got all sorts of varied different sessions. So I don't think we've actually ran since August 18, I don't think we've actually ran the same session more than once. So, so I would have been head of programming for the first couple of years, and then Stu took that on. So like we literally have thousands of training sessions, but the idea behind bike row ski was low barrier to entry, low complexity, easy to coach from the get-go. It can be a come as you go, or it can be come and go, pays as you go model, so that, you know, the whole idea was was that it was trying to be the opposite to PTI, because
Okay.
PTI was so complex. You know, for me, the squat is hours of conversation to get it perfectly right and safe for different people. So that's why we had fundamentals processes in place, and you had to go through, and you still do have to, at least 1, 2 or 3 fundamental sessions with a coach before you can train with us in a group setting. But for a lot of people, and I totally understand it, for a lot of people that's a barrier to entry, because it's just, people go, I just want to train, can I just get in? And you have to respect that as well, because as I got older as well and busier with kids, and myself, my wife, and she has her own business as well, things got busier, and if I was to go and do something and someone put a barrier in my way to go and do it, you would be reluctant to then go, oh, look, you know what, that's just hassle. I'm just going to go and do this instead. Yeah. So with Bike Row Ski, it was to make it barrierless. You know, literally the app, download it, in your details, book one class, in you go. When you arrive, check in, coach brings you in. It's literally systemized from the check-in all the way through class and after. So anybody brand new can come and go anytime, and they're going to get the exact same experience as if they were the person who'd done 300 sessions. So there was no confusion. You know, we had a set system in place as to how row is coached, as to how ski is coached, as to how bike is coached, and we set that in place. And every single class, those points are made sure that they're drill tight, so everybody moves well, everybody's safe, there's no barriers to entry. It's 12-minute blocks, and you get a massive bang for your buck in 45 minutes, and you're at the door and you're gone. And if you want to do, you know, 1 class a month, or if you want to do 25 classes a month, which a lot of people do.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So, you know, you're
doesn't matter then if I'm floating in and out.
Yeah, doesn't matter. I mean, the idea behind it, again, from a programming point of view, is that PTI, for me, from a strength and conditioning, especially from a strength and accessory part point of view, that needs to be progressive, and it needs to be structured. People coming into a gym, you know, back in the day, going to a commercial gym and wandering around with your tail in your water and seeing what machine was free, those days are gone, long gone. People want structure, and people need structure, and they're 100% correct. It always broke my heart to see people going into a commercial gym and just aimlessly looking for something to do. I'm like, that's not training. That's just, you're just wasting your time. Unfortunately, you're there putting in an effort, and you've made the effort to go somewhere. So make sure that your time is used valuably. And for me, everything is time now. Everything is like, how is your time managed? How are you using it well? So to go into a gym, especially if you've got kids or if you've got busy work life or whatever it is, if you go into a gym and you've committed to go there for an hour, and you're walking around and that hour is just wasted. You're like, oh, I'll use the, oh no, someone's on that. Oh, I'll use the, oh no, looks like he's going to use that. You know, it shouldn't be that way. So PTI was always structure. 1 hour, they're gone or less. And then the next day they're in, there's progressive structure from that. With Bike Row Ski, the idea was that there's structure within every single session, but it doesn't have to be a session progressed to the next session. The idea is that you get aerobic stimulus for 45 minutes. And yes, if I said, you know, come in and do 12 minutes straight on a bike and then rest, and then do 12 minutes straight on a rower and then rest, and then do 12 minutes straight on a skier and then rest, you'll get a workout. If you do that 3, 4, 5, 10 times, all of a sudden, you know, everybody knows, like, progression just stops, and you go, and it's bored, you know, it's boring, it's not stimulating, and from a fitness point of view, you stall. So there has to be a varied approach, and it has to be a varied experience. So that's where Bike Row Ski can be that kind of come and go model. But also, if you're someone who goes 5 times a week, which we have lots of people who do that in our studios, if they're there 5 times a week, they're getting 5 different sessions anyway. So having variety for us is massively important. And having a good experience is massively important. Like for me, you know, experience now, especially because as people, you know, our kind of demographic will be, you know, I would say our demographic goes from, you know, teens up to 60. Like it's a massively wide audience. So we get people coming from step aerobics classes, and we get people coming from CrossFit classes.
Yeah.
Or we get like, we've had some international rugby players come in and attend classes, sitting alongside Stu's mum, who's there just for the music and for the fun and for the sweat. And she doesn't care if she does 500 meters on a rower and the international rugby player did 3.5K. Like, he's there for meters, she's there for fun, but they're both getting the experience that they want. So that was the whole beauty of it. Like, if you want metrics are there. If you want just music and fun, it's there as well. If you're interested in both, we're laughing.
Yeah.
You know?
And how do you accommodate for the different fitness levels, like you mentioned there? Is it just purely like, if I went in, let's say we were doing a class beside one another, I can go at one fitness level, you can go at the other. It doesn't really matter where you're starting.
Well, see, that's the whole beauty of it, is that, if I move at a 25 stroke rate on a rower and you move at a 25 stroke rate on a rower, all we're doing is we're both moving at the same rate, but there's nothing to say that I'm applying less force or more force than you. Like, I could be rowing at a 210 split at a 25 stroke rate, and you could be moving at a 145 split at a 25 stroke rate. So if that's your tolerance level for a 2-minute set aerobically, and that's my tolerance level for a 2-minute set, then we're getting what we need.
Yeah,
it's different to, if we go for a run and you're like massively aerobically trained and I'm not. I'm like, let's go for a run. Now it's different because we're displacing ourselves from A to B, and for you to get aerobic effort, you're gone, and for me to get aerobic effort, I'm way behind you. And if I go, I better keep up with Orla here, now all of a sudden my heart goes through the roof, and we're a minute in, and I'm like, I gotta back off, I'm done. And you're like at like 75% going, what are you talking about? This is easy. Whereas on stationary work, on a bike rower or a skier, we can take that away. Yeah. We can say, look, go at your own pace, but here's a stroke rate that I want you to work off. And then we can monitor heart rates, and we can have a glance and see, Orl up there, she's in yellow zone, she's cruising, she's happy, she's hitting stroke rates, and you turn around and there's Brian, and he's redlining, and you look around and he's doing the exact same stroke rate, but he's just drilling it far too hard. So from a coach's point of view, they can lean in and say, ease off, take a second, just focus on good movement, focus on your stroke rate, don't worry about as much power. So it's been able to be in the moment coach and try and keep people together as a group on their level.
And still maintaining that individual approach that you always had.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you mentioned there about January 2019, it exploded. When did you open the second and the third and the fourth?
So franchising was never really the idea.
Okay.
It was to open one in Concealy as our kind of test, and then it was to open one in town. That was the plan. And we just, from the end of 18, so we're probably open 3 or 4 months, and a couple of real die-hard bike skiers kind of came to us and said, look, have you thought about kind of franchising this? Like, could I get one off you? And I was looking at them going, I don't know how that really works. He said, well, are you going to franchise? And I said, I've actually no idea about franchising, to be honest. And I don't think many people do before they actually become a franchisor. So we just kind of looked into it and said, what locations were you kind of interested in? And all of a sudden, Balbriggan popped up, Fairview and Glasnevin, all around the same time. We launched those 3 studios, with the 3 different franchisees. We launched those 3 studios all within probably a month or 6 weeks of each other. It was all pretty quick. It was really quick. So at the time, myself and Stu and Mark and Sarah, we were all coaching in Concealy and Abbey, and then all of a sudden it went to, okay, we gotta get all the contracts done. We had to contact a franchising company that we use, and they basically had to help us kind of package the whole thing up. So I had to meet one of their consultants, and we sat there for a couple of days, and it was a really interesting process, because it's effectively writing a book about you and about your idea and about how you open the door, like how you turn the key in the door in the morning and how you close it at night, and everything in between you got to write down everything. Like it is pretty fascinating stuff. So yeah, we had to basically package up Biker Ski into manuals. You know, you've your like manager's manual, your technology manual, your owner's manual, and then the studio manual, and everything. So literally everything about Biker Ski is manualized and it's systemized, and it's quite satisfying to see the whole thing as a book, which is pretty cool. Yeah, like that was all very, very fast. And then there was plans for a lot more, and then obviously COVID hit, you know.
And how do you make sure that somebody that's going to, let's say for example, I went to the 4 different studios, how do you make sure that I get the same experience and all?
Yeah, great question. So I visited a few kind of big brand franchises in the States when I was over there for a wedding a couple of years ago, and that was one thing that I wanted to kind of see from the big brands, how they did it in different locations. And some were absolutely brilliant, and some quality might be slightly different. The building could be different. It's different coaches, different people. Some people have good days, some people have bad days. You can't avoid it. But from a franchisor's point of view, it sounds very kind of hard, but it's auditing. It's weekly, monthly auditing and franchise visits. And auditing sounds like a very official term, but it's basically our operations team attending a class, going in and literally having fun and attending a class, and then spending time with the coach, talking to the manager talks to the owner, and we make sure that all boxes are ticked. So we've a very, very consistent hands-on approach to quality control, and that does come down to, you know, not coming in and saying, oh, the auditor is here, or the operations guy is here. It's creating that family atmosphere within all the Biker Ski coaches. I mean, now you're talking like 40-50 coaches that we have, and absolutely every single one of them are class, like top-notch coaches, and that comes from the owners of the studios through to the managers, and then to the team of people that are around them. And then we have Stu and Ruth and Sarah and Abby, who go into the studios, spend time with the coaches, and spend time with the managers and talk to the owners. And we do our monthly meetings with every studio owner. We say, look, you know, this is where you're at in terms of the reports that we have, in terms of, you know, how great the coach's class was, how clean the studio was, how great the customer service was, our reception, how everything looks, how everything rolls, and you know, even down to you know checking the batteries in every single bike rower and skier, and checking the drag factor. You know, it's a systemized, detailed approach to making sure that, you know, what we started in Concealy is the exact same experience in all other locations, you know.
And you mentioned your operations team, but how much do you rely on client feedback and from the general public doing those classes?
Yeah, we've done plenty of feedback over the years. We've done in-studio feedback with different surveys on different things, like everything from music to, you know...
how do you pick the music out of interest?
That came about. We contacted a few different DJs back in the day, and we, you know, at the start we were like all kind of deciding what kind of music we wanted to use, and we knew it had to be a broad appeal because we're such a broad audience. So, you know, I love like 80s and 90s and stuff, and we would have had playlists made up with that in mind, where there'd be, you know, like up to date music, and then a bit of 80s would be like mixed in, and, you know, just a cool kind of different approach. But we have Paul Webster and Andy Byrne are the two DJs who now kind of work for us, and they are constantly just grinding out playlists for us.
They work for you and do the music?
Yeah. And then my brother-in-law, Marty Miller, is the DJ on Nova FM. So he does all of our voiceovers for, you know, like, you know, Biker Ski, Master All 3, and that comes over the like playlist during class. So he does all of our voiceovers, and Paul and Andy mix it all in. So we would then, the idea then was to get every coach to give Paul or Andy 10 or 20 songs that they love, and then Paul or Andy would then say, you know, it's Orla's playlist, and they would have all of your tracks mixed into a cool list. And then,
That's cool.
you know, we could be in Concealy and we open the Bico Ski SoundCloud channel, and then you have all the playlists that are, you know, designed by the coach.
Yeah.
Or there could be the Concealy playlist, or there could be the Christmas playlist, or it could be the St. Patrick's Day playlist. So we have all these different playlists that are drawn up, and now it's probably a library of, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 kind of playlists now, and just growing by the month. So
that's really cool.
yeah, the whole kind of music thing, lots of people came back on, oh, more 80s, more 90s, oh, more up-to-date stuff. So you're trying to keep everybody pleased. But yeah, we ran surveys in-house, we do online surveys, and we're constantly talking to clients. The other thing as well is that all of our coaches, they all jump into classes whenever they can, if they can get a spot. Because it's like for me, even I haven't been in the last couple of weeks, because I just can't get in, which is great.
Yeah.
But again, because we've like less numbers in class as well now, so it's a little bit harder. But yeah, I mean, everything's on this constant feedback and progressive kind of loop. So, you know, Abby, for example, would like text our like coaches group and say, guys, if there's a spot at 11:30, can I jump in? And, you know, Julie could be coaching. So Abby jumps in, Julie coaches, and then after class, two of them will have a chat about how it went, and then they'll chat to Sarah, our manager, and Sarah will say, brilliant, thanks for the feedback, guys. And then she'll talk to all the other coaches. This is what Abby saw in Julie's class. I think we should use this, try that, say what she said here, use this, and this. And would use our IQ system on this minute, press this button. So there's this constant feedback loop on to how to make the class experience that little bit better, because all of our coaches are amazing, and we're constantly going through you know, upskilling, and we do like different kind of coaches seminar days where people come together, and you know, Stu, our head of ops, will coach, you know, what he says is the best class, so he'll put on like a show for all the like coaches and go,
so there's competition, you know, there between the
coaches.
Who's
like
best.
You wouldn't believe, it's hilarious. Like, you know, Sarah and Stu are constantly back and forth. Probably Sarah and Stu and Ruth are constantly back and forth as to who's the best, who's the OG, you know. So yeah, like we've great banter, and everybody's constantly in this feedback loop, and this big positive feedback loop. And I think that's one of the ways to constantly build culture, and to not this culture of trying to be better than each other, but this culture of trying to bring up the standard and the quality of the team the whole time, and everybody wants to get better. And I think that for us, we've such a good strong team, that we've all spent so much time together building this and writing manuals and writing the coach education courses and everything. Now everybody's so proud of what we've put together. So there is just this constant surge and this constant urge for everybody to just get better and better and better and grow, you know.
Brilliant. As a business owner, and when you mentioned a lot of your staff there, and for me, I'm entering, I guess, the working world. What are you looking for when you're hiring employees? Like, let's say we're having an interview, you read my CV. What's the kind of standout things for you?
Honestly, the big thing that has always stood out for me from the very beginning in PTI and bike or ski, I mean, I know, because I've had coaches join the gym, and they might might be a member. And just from a sheer personality point of view, like straight away when they're in the room, how they treat people, how they talk to people, you know, pleases and thank yous, good manners, like all this stuff. It's the person that you're looking at first and foremost. It's like a page full of qualifications is great, absolutely. But when you meet a person, like within 5 minutes, like, you know. Like, for me, it's like, I know. I mean, like, I remember when Abby joined the gym, joined PTI as a member, and we were setting up bike or ski, and Stu came upstairs. After talking to Abby for 5 minutes, Stu came upstairs, and he's like, you have to meet this girl. And I was like, how do you mean? And he's like, she is one of us. She is going to be a coach with us. I'm telling you, she's getting qualified. Let's chat to her. Okay. That was like, what, 4 years ago? Like it was straight away personality. It was the same with Stu and Carl. It was the same with Sarah, same with Ruth, same with Daglon, same with Dylan, Amy, Oisin, Julie, everybody. It's just all about personality. And when you get good people on board, creating coaches or creating roles, that's like, not to like put it down the pecking order of importance, but I knew from spending time with people from a technical coaching point of view, you can hammer that into people over time, and you say, this is the system, follow the system, this is how we coach, follow this. But it's very difficult to have someone come in, and I haven't had any experience of this, but to have someone come in who's massively educated but just not a good person. Like it's a and again, not saying there's bad people ever. I'm just saying that it's very difficult to work with a personality and to change a personality. Like,
but you can change your skills.
Yeah, you can say to somebody, oh, this is how you were taught how to squat. I'm actually gonna explain to you why you don't need to do that, and why this will feel better, and you'll feel better. And once you show them evidence of this kind of stuff and a systematic way to actually do it, they're like, cool, that makes sense. But you can't turn around to somebody and go, you're not really nice, I'm going to try and make you nicer. You're a bit mean. So I think personality for us is huge. Okay. And this is the thing, we're constantly meeting people who are applying for jobs in, like, we've our studio in Dundalk opening soon, and then we've one in Tala opening, and then we've Douglas is reopening. We're meeting people all the time, and for like people who are starting, like Fairview were hiring, Glasnevin were hiring, we were taking on someone new in Concealy, and Balbriggan, and when we meet people, Sarah will meet them for Concealy, Maria will meet them in Balbriggan, Karen will meet them in Glasnevin, and we'll always ask them, going like, how'd you get on? And like they'll be like, they were so nice. They're one of us. Yeah. And I'm like, do they if I was to ask, do they know anything about drag factor and stroke rates on like a rower, they'd be like, no, they don't. Like, not at all. I was just chatting to them and seeing what kind of person they are, and that's the approach we always have. It's just meet the person, talk to the person, find out about them, what are their interests, what sort of training have they done, what are they looking to do in the future, have they family, what are they about, and literally within 5 minutes you're like, this person's one of us, and we can help them become a really good coach.
Brilliant. And when you're, as a business owner, what's it like having employees? Is it a major responsibility that sometimes you're like, oh my God, what have I got myself into?
Yeah. It's brilliant because you get to build a family around you. I know that sounds kind of cringy maybe, but you do, because you get to meet really good people and then go, would you like to work with us? And they go, yeah, I would. And you go, cool, we're going to spend loads of time together, and we're going to become mates, we're going to become friends, and I've got to be the boss. Yeah. But I've never taken that approach of sitting in the chair and just pointing fingers and shouting and stuff like that's like times.
I can tell from chatting to you, it's just not your approach.
Times are very different now. It's about spending time with people and finding out what they like. Abby's into football and Carl's into football, and Ruth's into GAA, and Amy and Dylan are more towards they enjoy CrossFit, and Dylan's into GA as well, and Dagon's hurling, and he's a family man as well. He's got 2 kids, so it's knowing what everybody what means the most to all of them, and then we can work around that and make sure everybody gets to do what they want to do. And with that kind of flexibility, they want to be part of a team that provides that kind of flexibility. So no, it's great, and some of the goals for me have always been that the hoops that myself and my wife had to jump through to get our mortgage as 2 self-employed people. I said to all the guys, it's like, I don't want anyone else to have to go and do that. So my kind of long-term goal has always been about trying to professionalize, or to help professionalize the fitness industry in Ireland as much as possible, and to help people realize that if they get a job in fitness, they can get a mortgage, and they can buy a car, and they can raise a family, and these kind of things. Because I think a lot of people, like I always say, it's the 27, 28 kind of age kind of thing, where people get into the fitness industry in their early 20s. They work through, they love it, but it gets to a stage where they're like, oh, I've got a girlfriend now, and I might propose to her, or I have a boyfriend now and we'd love to move in together, and then all of a sudden they go, oh, no bank's going to talk to us. So it's that's why I've got friends of ours who are teachers and accountants and lawyers and, you know, property developers and all these kind of different jobs. And for them, it's not easy, but it's an easier process for them to make the next step in life, which is, you know, get married, have kids, buy a house.
Yeah.
Not saying it is easy for them, but it's definitely easier compared to self-employed people in the like fitness industry. You're just not really, well, up until a while ago, you weren't really looked upon as bankable, really.
Okay.
And that was something that I found out the hard way, and that I really had to grind and get a good broker to paint a really good picture of us, and literally like take my life story to a couple of banks and lending institutions and go, this is what this guy does, and this is what he's planning to do. And we were lucky that someone took a chance on us, and we got a house. And that's one of my biggest achievements to date, me and my wife, to actually get that. Like, two of us were delighted, but my goal is to try and make sure that the guys and girls that I have working for us, that they don't have to jump through as many hoops, that, you know, they're part of a team, a solid setup, and that Bike Ski is growing, and that we're trying to create as many jobs as we can and help these people, you know, have a real career.
And is that one of the biggest things that motivates you as an entrepreneur? And as you said, kind of bringing this new kind of perception of the fitness industry, is that kind of the biggest thing that drives you?
Yeah, I think so. It's always been, I think at the start it was about, I think at the start for me, it was just about enjoying fitness and going, I can make a job out of this. But as the years went on, like I said, the penny kind of dropped, that I was like, I enjoy this, but I need to flip around my time. That's what I'm doing here, so that the business can grow, so that I can move forward in life. And that did really start making me kind of realize that if I'm going to have people working for me, I don't want to sell them a lie that I'm just giving them hours so I can go home.
Yeah.
You know, like I used to feel so guilty when Daglon said, oh, I'm working tonight, you're off. And because I'd worked every single day, when I went home, I'd be sitting there with Kathy and she'd be like, are you all right? And I'd be like, I feel bad for not being there.
Yeah. And,
you know, I had to like realize that like you can't do it all on your own. If you want to grow a business, like if you're a one-to-one coach and you rent a space and that's what you do and you coach, and when you enjoy coaching and you spend time with 10 people a day, like I would say, charge for your time, and do it really, really well, like customer service, coaching, you know, give them a really good coaching experience and make it quantifiable and show them progress and everything that a lot of really good one-to-one coaches do. But if you want to run a business that is going to require, you know, you having to step back and be behind a computer or behind a desk, you know, it's very, very different. You know, you need to look at it as a business compared to, if you're that one-to-one coach, then your business is you being there all the time, and when you aren't working, you're not earning. So I think for a lot of people, it got to that stage in the 27, 28 to 30 kind of age group where the penny kind of drops for a lot of people, and they're like, I need to move on from this, or I need to, you know, find a way for this to be much better for me. So that's why you do see a lot of coaches get to 27, 28, 29, and the penny does drop, and a lot of them go, I'm actually going to go and get a job in a different industry because I'm going to get a salary tomorrow and I can bring that to the bank. So it's hard, and that's why I love the idea of professionalizing the industry, growing, employing more and more people, and having them like comfortable in a job, knowing that it's they're getting a salary. They can go to a bank and the bank can say, wow, like you're a fitness professional. Like you aren't, you know, a coach who's just working a few hours here and there. Like this is your like bread and butter. This is your like 5-day week, or you know, your 9 to 5, whatever you want to call it, but that's their actual career, and it's recognized. So there's a very kind of gray area still, I feel, around that. You know, if somebody's a physical therapist and if you're still self-employed, that's still very, very difficult. And you know, my wife, who has a pre and postnatal business, you know, she was the same. Like she works hard, really hard, and we just had our third baby, and she's still working while that's going on, because you know she wants to work, and that's the like two of us have only ever known, just, you know, constantly be on and be working. But I'd love to see it that the the fitness industry just gets a little more professionalized for all the people that are really passionate about it, because there's so many people out there that are massively passionate and want to become a coach, but it can only go to a certain point when they're doing all the hours themselves. So getting those kind of people that are passionate and getting them involved in a team like us, or like any other good fitness team that's kind of growing, getting them in and saying, look, there is a career in this, like stick with it. You know.
And how do you manage your time? Because I know you're really busy, and I really appreciate you coming in and giving up your time. Is there a specific, like, how do you lay out your calendar? How do you balance everything?
So for me, my kind of time is mainly kind of spent on innovation with like the technology for the studios, and dealing with people like Glowfox, our app and payment software people, and then franchise sales, talking to new potential franchisees, and then kind of overall kind of company vision and direction, and a lot of that sounds kind of very kind of broad and vague, and it is. And some weeks, you know, last week I was up in Dundalk checking on that studio. It's almost ready, going in, having a look, making any kind of notes and chatting to the guys who are setting that up, and then Stu at the same time in our ops, he's like literally going through the coaches' education with all their coaches, and hiring people, and then, you know, the other thing is that, you know, like now compared to, you know, 3, 4, 5 years ago, you know, I might have had like only one child, whereas now there's 3. So time, and with the whole like working from home, coming going from there, and with a new baby in the house, it's time management. I mean, like yesterday I was working from home for, you know, the majority of the day, and, you know, the girls are kind of coming and going, and then you're holding the baby for a while, and the phone rings, and you're out the back trying to get some quiet time, and then you're back inside holding the baby and working on the computer. So time management at the moment's been it's been a bit tougher at the moment. But we are lucky that we have an office in the gym. We have an office space that we use in the workspace down in Malahide Marina in the View. So we would basically have our marketing guy, Zach, will be there 3 days a week. So we'd make sure to spend time with him. Then we have 2 content creator guys that are coming and going from different studios, getting content, bringing it, editing it, bringing it to us, bringing it to Stu and to Zach, from a marketing structure point of view, and then each month, really from a kind of set a set timetable point of view, it'd be making sure that there's studio visits being done. It'd be making sure that there's all the kind of paperwork with like your VAT and your tax and all the fun stuff, all the real fun stuff, and that has to be done, and that's scheduled, and then you have all your monthly meetings with your franchisees. So some of the month can be extremely structured, and then some of it can be, you know, literally getting back to inquiries, phone calls, emails, going visiting new sites and seeing, are these suitable. So I guess I've like at the start it's like I said, I was probably 80 to 90% coaching, and then that slowly shifted over time. Coaching hours dropped, and time behind the computer, behind the desk increased, and then all of a sudden it's mainly, you know, administrative time, and coaching has all but dropped down to a 0. And for me, I think that was a semi loss of identity for a while, because all I've ever known is being busy coaching, and I think that's what most people knew me for as well, was, you know, going to Steve and you're going to be doing, you know, he's going to coach you today on either down in like PTI from a weightlifting point of view, and I was bringing people to weightlifting meets and coach them there, and that had to stop, and then with bike ski, I was the first bike ski coach, so then that torch had to be kind of passed on, and like for me it was, you know, if I coach even 1 or 2 classes a day, twice that time is lost in terms of, you know, like finishing up, cleaning up, getting a shower, you know, getting back to your desk, and then you could miss 4 phone calls, 8 emails, and all of a sudden you're chasing your tail. So you're trying to be really smart about your time, and like I said, understand that, you know, you can't wear all the hats if you want a business to grow. You have to say, look, the coach hat has to be taken off, and someone has to become the sit down behind the desk and work on, you know, business expansion, the vision, the direction, and that, though, like expansion, vision, and direction sound like very kind of broad terms, but you know, that's what it is. Like, you are sitting there and you're looking and going, you know, how are we growing today, this week, this month, this year? What's the plan? And then meeting with, you know, your staff, your managers, your other franchise owners, and saying, this is the plan, this is where we're going. And a lot of that can be back and forth meetings, because, you know, you want, like, the brand has to go in one direction, so every studio has to go in that direction, but it could be in different areas with different demographics and different people. So there's a lot of thought to go into making small changes in one studio that can be a massive change in another studio, you know. So yeah, it's busy.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I just want to talk about COVID a little bit. I know you had massive plans before that, before it all hit. I think you were going to go abroad. In terms of managing change as a leader and a business owner, obviously everyone was hit by this, but how difficult was it to manage change in terms of the whole thing was shut down? There was so much uncertainty for so long, and there still is a little bit of uncertainty. I'd say that's there is a bit of anxiety with everyone,
absolutely,
never mind business owners.
Yeah. The funny thing was, I remember we got a phone call from one of our franchise owners, and they said, we're going to close today. And we were sitting at the desk, like, just working. Yeah. And I think it was like, you know, there was like, oh, there's 2 cases of COVID in, like, Sligo or Galway or something. Yeah. And we were like, oh, it's in the country now. But sure, it was probably everyone had it. We were like, no, you're not going to close, are you? And then, you know, we all spoke and we're like, maybe, okay. So we made a decision to close all studios, and we said, look, it'll probably be 4, 6, 8 weeks. God, 8 weeks to be closed. Imagine, that'd be crazy. You know, little did we know. Yeah. But we were thinking, going, God, will we buy a container full of, like, bikes, rowers and skiers, and then we'll either sell them or we'll rent them out actually while we're closed? That'd be a good idea. And we literally laughed. Myself and Stu laughed at each other and said, it's a silly idea, like, that's not going to happen. And little did we know, like, bikes, rowers and skiers became the biggest shortage in the world. Like, you couldn't get your hands on them for love nor money. Yeah. And we were like, geez, why didn't we just buy like 50 of them? Yeah. But we didn't think it was kind of going to last that long. But we just had to pivot and shift. And I think everybody's used those terms, like, you got to pivot and you got to think outside the box. Yeah. And we did. You know, we had to go, like, we considered the whole Zoom thing, but, you know, obviously, you know, most people haven't got bikes, rowers and skiers at home. Yeah. Like, not 3 of them, like,
not 3 of them together, never mind. You know? Yeah.
So we ended up renting out all the ergs to, like, different people, and then sending out programming to everybody. And it was a weekly kind of update. And then there was, you know, we had to go very active on social media, and just keep your audience engaged. That was the main thing. You know, the other thing then from a staff point of view was, you know, you're trying to make sure that you don't lose people. Yeah. Because, you know, obviously panic kicks in and people have bills to pay. So it was keeping some people working. It was keeping people motivated with different projects. We spent a lot of time working on our UK franchise agreements and manuals throughout the whole of the lockdowns, like, and the coaches education course, we rebuilt that. We were talking to the DJs about music ideas. We were thinking about new ideas. So, like, even when we were working from home and doing Zoom calls with all of us, and then when you're allowed back into, like, you know, a big shared workspace with 2 of you sitting across the room, or we were, like, literally sitting outside the, like, back of the gym on like benches, like, literally sitting there with, like, laptops open and, like, cups of coffee, because at the time, you know, you were like, you know, what is right and what is wrong, you know. Like, it was keeping people motivated and people keeping coaches communicating, keeping everyone talking. Yeah. You know, different things, like, you know, doing, like, everybody did your, like, Zoom quizzes. Yeah. All did you that do stuff, one of them? Yeah, like, literally loads of them. And, you know, like everyone was like, you know, get a beer and do a Zoom quiz or whatever. So yeah, like, all that stuff went on, but it was trying to keep this team of people that we had put together, was trying to keep these people all motivated and say, look, we're going to get back at it, don't worry. Yeah. And then obviously while we were closed, it was thinking about when we reopen, how are we going to do this, give the exact same experience, but it has to be obviously different. It has to be, you know, people have to know that they're safe coming in. You have to rebuild customer trust. because I think every indoor space in the world had everybody second guessing it, then going, is this safe or not? So I think we were lucky in that we put in high volume air exchange systems into every studio without even knowing that a pandemic was coming. So we've been very, very lucky, and air purification system in place, and then all of our new kind of systems in terms of cleaning. I'd be interested to know if anybody has spent more on cleaning products than we have, which has been fun. But you know, it was about making sure that a new version of the same great experience reopened. And it did, and it has, and you know, thank God, you know, things are busy, and we are, you know, driving forward, you know, 2022, you know, all things going well, with ever staying open. Like, we will be opening a minimum of 4 or 5 places next year, starting in mid-January. So Dundalk is only 2 or 3 weeks away from opening, and then Tala will follow, and then we'll be reopening in Cork, and then we've our eye on at least 5 other locations. So I mean, like, we are literally picking up where we left off.
Yeah. And are you looking at expanding internationally at some point? Yeah,
so that was the idea. I mean, we have a UK franchise company that wrote all of our UK franchise manuals for us. So they are literally filed, sitting there ready to go. And our UK trademarking is done as well. So our Irish and UK trademarking is done, like Bico Ski, literally the word, the trademark, the logo, that's all done. And we've had interest. I mean, all the overseas interest is great and it's really flattering, but they're expensive cups of coffee to go and check out a location. You know, we've had interest from Brisbane, from Abu Dhabi, London, Manchester, Amsterdam, LA, and New York. Like, we've had proper interest. We've obviously said to them all, going, look, we obviously can't do anything until things are a little clear and certain for travel and stuff, and overseas. But we're also, you know, my ex business partner who I would have bought out during all the lockdowns, and fantastic guy, still a good friend of mine, and a great business mentor. Like, he's very much so like my dad in like, you know, get the basics right. You know, don't go trying to open 4 places abroad when you want to make sure that this studio is performing well and this studio is doing things right, and you've all your ducks in a row. And it's very easy to get caught up in exciting emails and phone calls from people
Brisbane's
saying,
ringing you. And
it's really exciting, and you think, wow, this is it. This is the big jump. But I think we've done well in being reserved enough to go, no, we're going to wait. We're going to get this right here first. And like, we're over 3 years old now, but you can kind of take away, you know, 1.5 years of it for just kind of half of it kind of standing still. So I think UK is going to happen. Whether it'll be 2022 or 2023, we're not sure yet. We definitely have our sights on 2 locations in the UK. We've had interest from overseas franchisees who want to take some off us. We're also looking at the idea of doing more ourselves when we go abroad, just because it'd be easier for us just to maintain the quality of things ourselves over there. But they're all kind of big conversations to have. But I will say, we didn't do our overseas franchise agreements just for the fun of it. I mean, they're done, and we are going.
When you mention all these things and throughout your whole career, and I've asked nearly every guest this question, but what would be your definition of success?
Definition of success. Well, it's like I said, I love the idea of being involved, or to at least help in professionalizing the industry that little bit more, that people can get more involved in the fitness industry and know that there's a career ahead of them. And that's the idea with the growth of Bico Ski, that there's more roles emerging, there's more jobs emerging, and I'd love to be able to say, you know, that we employ over 100 people. I'd love that. I love the idea of having this massive family, this massive team, and being able to you know, get like a function room where there's a big gathering of all of our coaches, and to look at a ton of people there, and to have created a like fitness family. That for me is a huge thing. I think, long-term staff, coaches, that kind of family, having a career for me, that's definitely a kind of a definition of kind of success for me. And then the idea behind Biker Ski, and I mean, for us being an Irish company, to be, I've always said I love the idea of having an Irish brand and taking it overseas and arriving in a different country and saying, we are an Irish brand and this is what we do, and being able to grow an Irish brand in other countries. That's for me. It's a bit of a patriotic kind of Irish thing, I think. And I do love the idea of someone saying, wow, that's an Irish fitness.
So as a business owner, if there's anyone listening that's interested in going into maybe entrepreneurship, not from even a fitness standpoint, what are your non-negotiable behaviours? What do you have to do every day or every week?
I read a really good book, and I listened to a podcast recently on I love Masters of Scale, and I love How I Built This with Guy Raz.
Yeah.
So during all the like lockdowns and all the like boogie walks with like babies, I love music, but when I'm out walking, I listen to podcasts. I love it, and if I'm driving down to Limerick or Galway or Cork or someone, and I'm going looking at a site or meeting somebody, I'll throw on a podcast. It's just a good time to absorb kind of info. And I would have listened to some really good stuff. Like, I love Reid Hoffman. I think just from an entrepreneurial point of view and what he's done, guys like Peter Thiel with PayPal, and the Collison brothers with Stripe, and all these guys. And I think the main thing that you see from a lot of these guys is there was funding, and there was rounds of there was a lot of money involved in a lot of these things, but there seems to be just this kind of relentless pursuit of excellence. And I love that idea of just being the best in game, like the best in your industry, and maintaining a really, really high quality. And one of my kind of favorite quotes that came from, I think it was a Masters of Scale episode, or was it? No, I think it was Masters of Scale, and it was from Reid Hoffman, I think, and it was stop competing and create your own market and master it. Right. So it was I think it was something like, it was break free of the competition entirely, invent a new game and master that game, like master your own game. And I loved that idea of, who's doing this isn't this, and how can I be better than them? And I was like, well, hold on a second, why don't I just create something completely different that no one else is doing and just master that? So you aren't competing, you're just making your own way, which you have done. And that really resonated with me. I love that, to be able to go, I'm just going to create something new, something different, something that no one's done before, and do it really, really, really well, and constantly try and improve it. So for us, like, that's a non-negotiable. And the other thing was, I think it was from the Guy Raz, How I Built This. It was Jim Collins. Have you heard of Jim Collins? He wrote a book called Good to Great. Very intelligent guy, and what he does is, now he's I'd be a very numbers and data kind of driven person as well. But what he does is, I think he ranks productivity on a day-to-day basis. Oh, wow. And he scores himself. If you read the book, it's in there. He scores his day -2, -1, 0, +1 or +2. That's cool. And he's trying to make sure that he's constantly on a plus for the whole year. So a -2 will be a very unproductive day. He could be down, he could have got nothing done. A +2 will be a massively productive day. And then he'll like take notes on, if it was a +2 and what he did that day, so that he can constantly look back and see, these are the most productive days, these are +2 days, what I do in those days and made it a +2, and I'm going to do more of that. That's cool. Really cool. Yeah. And then the other thing that your man Jim Collins said was, he, as a non-negotiable, he has to do 3 creative hours, new creative hours every day. So he has to surpass 1,000 creative hours a year. Wow. Which is hard to do when
Yeah,
you think about it,
definitely.
because it's got to be 3 hours of new, not even just new ideas, but it could be just, building on something that you've already done. Like you have to break new ground
Yeah.
every day, 3 hours a day. So
Jesus.
if you're going to work for 8, 9, 10, 12 hours a day, 3 of those have to be creative, which is
Yeah.
really cool idea as well. So that's something that I'm trying to lean more towards and get better at, is that from company direction and company vision, they're all very, very broad, but from things like innovation within the studio, programming, customer experience, customer service, that's stuff that we constantly talk about within our ops team with Ruth, Sarah and Stu and Abby, and we constantly talk about that with managers like Karen and Maria and Maeve and Stewie, and it's yeah, this is brilliant, and the place is going well, it's clean, the customer service is great, the program is great, the coaching is great. How do we do it better?
Yeah.
So it's not being a tyrant and saying this has to be better. It's asking everybody, how do we all get better? How do we improve upon that? And that just gets people's kind of creative juices flowing, going, yeah, what, we can try this, we can try that, and we'll constantly chat it out and constantly give each other feedback and say, yeah, that can be done, let's focus on this now.
Brilliant. I've written down the 2 names. Going to listen to the podcast and the book. I'm
Yeah,
really looking forward to it.
yeah. It's Good to Great by Jim Collins. I'm pretty sure and
Brilliant.
he was just on. I think it's called like, it's the. How I Built This, Guy Raz, but he has another podcast, and I think it's called From the Top Down or something.
Okay.
And it's all kind of industry leaders and talking
Brilliant.
about how they get on. So guys like in Peloton,
Yeah.
PayPal, Stripe. The girl is on a Sarah Blakely from Spanx. Like that's an amazing story. Amazing
that's really
story.
Cool.
So I'd say I've probably listened to all of them twice
Okay.
at this stage,
Yeah.
just because they're all so engaging. They're good, like hour and a half. Some are maybe 45 minutes, and you can just get a good snippet. But I'd constantly take notes from these people, different quotes, different things that they did. But yeah, that quote from, I think it was Reid Hoffman, about the whole like inventing your own game and then mastering it. That for me was just like,
This
okay,
is it.
that sounds cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try that.
Brilliant. Speaking of quotes, I'm going to move on. You're a pro. I've got my little segue here. I'm going to move on to sideline 7. It's the same 7 questions at the end of every episode. Question 1: what is your favorite quote?
Yeah, and that's probably it.
Yeah.
There's loads of kind of sporting quotes and all that I love, but the whole like, don't compete, break free of the competition entirely and create your own game and master it. That for me is that's been in my head for 4 years, I'd say. Before that, it was all kind of like real like train hard and blah blah. Whereas that to me kind of applies to everything. It applies to business, it applies to life, it applies to training, it applies to sport.
Brilliant. Question 2: what's the best sporting event you've been to?
I would have to say, from a Dubs point of view, I'm not a massive GAA head, but
Okay.
But I would follow the Dubs and the 2011 final. Like we were, myself and my friend Gary, we were I think we were in the premium seats that I got from a client of mine.
Wow.
Like he literally couldn't go, and he said, "Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Yes," because couldn't get a ticket. And we were down the end, literally looking behind, looking at like Cluxon's back as he slotted over the bar. So that was incredible. And then like I was at the Formula 1, the Grand Prix in Melbourne in 2005, I think. That was incredible day out.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dublin Kerry 2011 was that was a big one. That was great.
Pretty special. Question 3: what's been the biggest setback or challenge so far in your career, and how did you react to it?
Well, COVID kind of jumps off the page. I mean, it's been very difficult at times, but I think if you asked anybody, bar people who sell antiseptic gear and wipes, it's been
and masks.
and masks. It's been brutal, and everybody, a lot of things have changed, and people's ideas on things have changed, and on all sorts of stuff. I think the main thing for us was just keeping working in some shape or form and planning for the future. I mean, you can't, and it's very difficult to say you can't sit still and worry. Everybody worried, like we worried. We were all gutted about the whole thing. It was just that feeling of not moving forward and lack of progress. I've never had that feeling before. So it was brutal. And there's some mornings where you don't want to get out of bed, and you have to, and you just got to get up and you got to get going. And you keep yourself training. And I'm very, very lucky that the people that are around me, like at the time, with my family are amazing. My wife Kathy amazing, my kids brilliant, my mum and dad, all that. But the team with Stu, Sarah, Ruth, Mark, Abby, Daglon, Carl, Dylan, Amy, Oisin, Julie, everybody there kept everyone's spirits up. And we were, whether you're doing Zoom stuff or whether one of the guys was doing a Zoom class and we were all on it doing the class, like taking part. And then when you're allowed to travel around a bit again, giving people the keys and go in there to the gym, you use the gym this hour, clean the place, next person goes in, and keeping everybody motivated and keeping everybody moving. That was really, really important, and keeping everybody involved, giving them some sort of task, even if it was as my task of delivering dumbbells to other like the members' houses, or collecting a rower from somebody and sending out programming, all the stuff. It's purpose, and I think everybody just needed purpose. I think that was the big fear for most people, was sitting still and not knowing day to day what they were going to do. So having some sort of purpose was huge. And like we've been very lucky that we've reopened and everybody's still there and everybody's back working and hungry, and we're going to grow. And I think everybody's had their kind of COVID story. So hopefully we're soon going to put it behind us, hopefully. But let's just see how we go.
That chapter's still been written. Kind of on the flip side then, a bit more positive, what's been your biggest achievement within or outside the business?
Well, outside the business, it's the fact that I managed to get married and have 3 small children. I never thought this. I'd be so lucky. I've got 3 great kids, and I'm blessed. So and to be able to buy a house with my wife, near where the two of us grew up, like we're very, very, very lucky. From outside a kind of business point of view, in business, it's 2 businesses. Would I call them successful? I'd call them they're moving well. I'd call them successful to a point, and I'm really glad that I took the plunge years ago and did it. Is it difficult? Yeah, it is really difficult, and I think it's harder nowadays for people to. I mean, back when I opened PTI 2010, like no one was really doing what I was doing, so it was a wide open market. Nowadays, if I was, and again, I could open with half the place matted, half the walls painted, half the equipment that I actually needed, and a sloppy kind of booking system. Nowadays, if you were to try and do the same thing, you can't do it. You've got to open the doors, and it's got to be crystal chandeliers on day one hanging from the ceiling nearly. Like, the standard has just gone up so fast and so high. And that's just the industry evolving. And I think everybody who is in the fitness industry has had to realize that you have to be flexible and you have to be agile, and you have to go and evolve. And if you stand still for more than a year or 2, you're going to be left behind. I mean, they always kind of say that what happens in the States, we're generally something like 3, 4, 5 years behind here, like Ireland, UK, and Europe. And I believe that. So I think with the whole kind of, for want of a kind of better word, the like boutique kind of fitness industry, that's come along, and it's nearly swept up everything. Like the raw underground style kind of gym, there's not many of them kind of left. Like all the kind of CrossFit gyms, all the affiliates, there's tons now in Ireland. And if you kind of do an open with just what we have for the moment, and then in 6 months' time we'll add these kind of barbells, and in a year's time we'll paint this wall, that's just not going to fly anymore. Like people want to walk in and be kind of nearly blown away from an experience point of view. So I think where we are at now with PTI and with Bike Ski and the kind of growth side of things, we are lucky that we have a really strong team around us, and we can open like drop dead gorgeous studios
Yeah.
from day one, and we can wow people with the experience, you know. So yeah, so I'd say from an achievement point of view, it's definitely the growth of Bike Ski and being able to kind of open these amazing gorgeous studios now, and like literally just have people walk in and go wow, you know.
Brilliant. Looking back, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self? Probably sitting or ditching a preliminary engineering lecture.
Yeah, and do you know what? Like he was right in a way, because I think I wasn't ready for that kind of setting. I wasn't ready to sit there and listen to a fluid mechanics lecture for like 3 hours. I physically wasn't able, and I tried, but I'm glad that I did do what I did. I think I tried to stick it out, and you know, 2.5 years, I definitely learned that it wasn't the right direction for me, and that I was just that kind of, I was wired just differently. If I was to give any kind of advice, knowing what I know now, I'd be like, do a business course.
Okay.
Like, even if it's, you know, an online business course, and even if it's a 2-month business course in a you know, community center somewhere, do a business course. Like, you know, you have nothing to lose from doing a business course, because from what I've learned is that it's life. It's you know, it's your savings, it's your how you run your household, it's how you plan to save for a holiday. Like, that's, you know, it's business and accounting, and you know, it's commerce. So I would say that for sure. I think any kind of business course, I would love to have done a business degree. I wouldn't have the time to go back and do something like that now yet, but maybe in the future I'd love to do some kind of formal qualification. I've just been lucky to have good mentors and learned as I went. I would definitely say read more as well, and I still say that to myself now. I should read more. Podcasts seem to sink in better for me.
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't even like audiobooks. I just prefer people talking.
Yes, I don't like audiobooks. I'd agree with you. I think just this kind of conversational style of stuff, where you're getting real kind of conversations from people, like literally masters of scale, how I built this, any kind of entrepreneurial, yes, all this kind of stuff. It's amazing, because it's life experiences, and it's you know, evidence that stuff works and it doesn't work, and this is, you know, how it worked and this is why it didn't, and I love that. And then the other thing is, like when I went to California and I sat down with all these guys and got different advice, and I've always asked my dad for advice. He's amazing, and was a very successful man in his own right as well in the construction game, but I would definitely say search out, find out more experienced coaches, business owners, mentors, and ask them, can you buy them a cup of coffee? Brilliant. Like, can I call into you? I'll get half an hour of your time. I'll buy you a cup of coffee, or you know, can I bring you out for lunch, or whatever it is. And that's literally what we did with John Wellborn, and what we did with Coach Bergner, and what we did with you know,
what I'm doing with you now.
Well, and it's I think I still love to do that. I still love to contact people and go, would you like a cup of coffee and have a chat? And you know, if that counts as, you know, like business direction and like vision kind of stuff, it does, because it makes you think, and it makes you reassess, and it makes you go, God, that actually could work for us. And you know, the cup is never full. Never. Like that, it never is. And I think that you know, anybody who thinks that they know it all, or they've heard it all, I'm like, think again, like go and search out more information. And yeah, I mean, reading books are great, but I think speaking to experienced mentors and experienced coaches and business people who've succeeded and failed. I mean, like, I wrote down a fail list for me a while ago.
Wow.
I think it was like during COVID. I was like having one of those days. I'm like, I'm going to write down all the stuff that hasn't worked, and then on this list was like PTI and Bike Ski, and that was kind of it. And there was a few other little things, but the like fail list was like 15 things. And no one talks about the fail stuff. Like all you see is the really good success stuff. And okay, the failures weren't like massively collapsing businesses and massive financial failures, but they were ideas that you tried and you put time into, and you had to kind of scrap and push aside. And like to even talk to a business mentor and like ask them those kind of questions, and if they're open to those kind of conversation and they say, well, you know what, I actually had this business and it failed, and this and this and this is why it didn't work. I had the wrong people in the wrong seats. I wore too many hats. I didn't manage my time well enough. I didn't get enough sleep. There's a ton of different things that you can learn from these people, and you can learn them from books as well. But I think books a lot of the time just aren't authentic enough. Like it's just words on a page. When you're talking to a person, you can see grey hairs and you can see a bit of stress. You know, it's real, and when it's real, it's exciting because you're like, wow, they tried this and this, and I was actually thinking about that, and it didn't work because I did this. I'm actually going to do it, but I'm going to do exactly what he said he should have done. Yeah, you know, simple things like that can be huge.
Who would be your dream dinner guest and why?
I'm going to go full cringy on it. Like, I'm a golf nut.
Okay.
And it's too obvious. Like, I'd be just Tiger Woods all day. Like, Tiger. And
did you watch him in the sun?
Yeah. Like,
class. For
me, it's like I've a 4-month-old son now, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, it just had me be like, I'm doing this. You know, I would be, it'd be Tiger. It'd be great. And I know Connor Purcell, who's an Irish golf pro. He's met Tiger a couple of times. He's played with him.
Okay.
And you know, Connor's he's just an absolute legend. From another point of view, I'd be all over Arnold Schwarzenegger as well, just because the life story is just phenomenal. From, you know, I'm a big movie buff as well, and you know, I was an 80s kid, so like, you know, every like Schwarzenegger action movie, I was like, I could literally quote the whole thing for you. Like, I love them. So yeah, I'd be torn probably somewhere between Tiger and Arnold Schwarzenegger, I say.
Dinner wise, are we cooking? Are we getting a takeaway? What are you thinking?
Oh, I'd be like cooking steaks.
Were you cooking steaks?
I'd be cooking steaks for sure. Yeah.
Very good. Final question before I let you go: if your life was a book, what chapter would this be called?
So like, I guess I would be along the whole kind of keep it really simple and just call it growth. Like, I could go down the whole like midlife crisis chapter, but no, I'm like turning 40. No, it's growth, because from 2 points of view, from the business growing, Bike-Ski expanding, we want to go overseas, and then at the same time, from a personal point of view, you know, we just had our third child, our like little boy. You know, we've two girls and a boy now, and for me, it's like it's a huge thing for us to be like, you know, well, to have that little boy arrive was amazing, and you know, from a growth point of view, like we've like one in school, one in Montessori, one at home with us, and we're really in the middle of that kind of like raising 3 children kind of stage in our lives, and I love it. My wife's amazing. She's like the best mum ever.
Shout out to Kathy, who named Bike-Ski. Big
time, exactly. But yeah, it's definitely, you know, both sides of the coin. It's growth in family, growth in business, and like we're just looking to grow and move forward and get back on track, you know.
Brilliant, very exciting.
It's really exciting at the moment, and we've a lot planned. There's a lot coming down the line. So yeah, definitely keep an eye on the Bike-Ski social media pages, and you'll see what's coming. Yeah,
I'll be sure to link everything below. Stephen, thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed this. I learned a lot from it as well. The very best of luck with the business, with the family, with everything, and I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed it.
A massive thank you to Stephen for joining me on the podcast today. I thoroughly enjoyed our chat, and I hope you got something from it. This is the very first edition of our brand new leadership series, where we hear from those involved in the world of sport, media, business, entertainment, education and more. If you are enjoying the podcast, I'd really appreciate if you'd leave a rating and a review over on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as it does help the show grow. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.